Wow. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another marketing meetup. My name is James Sambrook. I am the co-founder of the marketing meetup with Joe. And I'm in Birmingham today. Where are you guys? Put it in the chat. Make sure that you've got it set to everyone and not just hosts. And yeah, tell us where you are. This is usually the point where Joe starts rallying you up and gets you to make sure you're bringing those good vibes and make sure that the chat is buzzing. So please do the same for me as I'm host today. Make sure you're saying hello, listening, and being positively lovely, because this, after all, is the marketing meetup. And one thing that I'm gonna level to you today, which I would really love you to do, is obviously Joe's going to deliver some great knowledge today, and I would love it, absolutely love it, if you took a screenshot, made a note, whatever your notes are, and share them on social media, because the more knowledge you share and the more knowledge we share, the better we all get, and we can lift everybody up in that way. So please do share it on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you like to hang out. And if that sounds good, then I will introduce Mr. Joe Glover. Not that he needs much introduction. He is the most positively lovely person in marketing, as far as I believe. And today he is going to talk about how to build a freaking amazing email newsletter like no other. No pressure, Joe. So most of you on the webinar today will be fully aware of the email that comes out from us. And despite its kind of relaxed and informal tone, there is a real strategy and real thinking behind what Joe does. He's not just winging it, although it probably started like that. And I just want to say, kind of on behalf of the community, Joe, that I wanted to take this opportunity to say thanks, because I get the emails, and quite often I know what's going to come out in the emails, but when they land in my inbox, there's this little moment of joy when I open them, because I get that little introduction of James, you ray of sunshine on a wet Wednesday, or whatever it is that you're writing, and it gives you a little, it's like a little whoop in the morning, and so your emails have a bigger impact than just educating people on marketing. They give people a little bit of joy and a little bit of a lift. So thank you for doing that. There's a bunch of stuff Joe's going to cover. He's going to talk about how email works as part of the marketing mix, what makes a good sign-up page, how to make an email yours. And from somebody who writes an email himself, I'm really excited to learn, even though I'm part of what goes on here. So yeah, I think there's going to be some gold today. Now, most of you who will have been here before will know that the presentation, the today's session forms a presentation and then a Q&A. So a word to the wise is we never quite get through all the Q&A because there's usually so many. So make sure that you see on your screen somewhere, you'll see the Q&A section. Put your questions in there. And then if you see a question that you really like, give it a big thumbs up, and then those questions will rise to the top and we'll answer those first. Joe has promised to be really quick and get through his presentation, so we've got plenty of time for Q&A. But please do get your questions in nice and early. And as this is a bonus webinar today, usually we have a sponsor of the week, and we haven't got a sponsor of the week. So I thought it'd be a really nice thing to just quickly touch on all of our sponsors who allow all of us to be here today, who are making you better marketers, who are connecting you as marketers, and allow us to do this thing, which is awesome. So Attest, they are a market research tool, and they're absolutely brilliant. We've used Attest. You set the questions you want to ask and then choose the audience, and they give you all the results, which is fabulous. Content Square are absolute legends. They host us in London for our London event, and they have a platform that takes you beyond traditional analytics and gives you a full customer experience, which sounds beautiful. Hrefs, or refs, as I like to call them, they're an SEO tool, and we regularly dip into their tool and use it for our blogs, which is why our blogs are so good. So make sure you go and check them out. Impression have just become a B Corp today. So if you're at home, give Impression a little round of applause. Hopefully Polly's watching today. She hosts our Nottingham event, which you'd be more than welcome to come along to. They have amazing food, and they put on a great event there for us. And they're digital growth specialists. And then three more. Redgate. Redgate have sponsored us right from day dot, and they are just wonderful people, and they're recruiting at the moment. So if you're in Cambridge and you want a job and you're a marketer, good place to look. Cambridge Marketing College. Joe did a blog. Did anybody see the blog that Joe wrote about how you can educate yourself as a marketer? If you did, or if you didn't, go and check it out. There's a bunch of courses on there from Cambridge Marketing College. And finally, Brand Recruitment, who have sponsored us for flipping ages, are also mega wonderful, super beautiful human beings. And you don't often get to say that about recruitment consultants, but they're wonderful. So if you need some new staff and you're growing, then do go and check them out. So one ask that I have is that you go afterwards. We send out an email with a link to all the people that our contacts. Do just drop them a note and say that was wicked. Thanks for today. And yeah, I think that's probably all from me. Joe thought it would be a bit weird him introducing himself, so I've done that bit. All the pressure's on you now, Joe, and then we'll have some questions afterwards.
What a boy! You, thank you, mate. In front of several hundred people all at once, I just want to say I love you very much and thank you for that, because it was super sweet. And thank you to everyone watching in today. I'm going to open up the chat feature, which is going to have a slightly annoying box to the right hand side of your screen, but it just means that I can see if anyone says anything. So apologies for the box, but hopefully it's in the good spirit. And let's get going with today's session. So my name is Joe Glover. I am 30 years and 282 days old. That's me in the photo with my daughter Annie, my wife Georgette, and our dog Eric. And I'm very, very happy to be here today. Today I'm going to be speaking about email, but to do that I need to start off with a story. That story begins in August 2016. When I was a solo marketer working in a small company. I knew that I wanted to meet other marketers and learn about marketing. And honestly, the obvious answer for meeting people and sort of learning about marketing, well, that would be networking. But networking, that terrified the hell out of me. And it's not just because I'm an introvert. It's because whenever I plucked up the courage to walk into those rooms, then people were stood in those circular formations and you had to break in to say hello to them. And even when you did, then quite often the solution or the outcome would be this. Someone would say, and it's lucky it's sort of blocked out by the box, no doubt. It says, I don't know who you are, but would you like to buy some marketing? You can figure out the rest of that. It was enough to make me think that networking probably wasn't for me. And to share a quick story about networking in more general terms, then I need to share a story of the 4 minutes I spent at an event, which I specifically traveled down to London for, having traveled 2 hours down on the train from Cambridge. I spent the first 30 seconds having arrived at this event in the queue, waiting to get in. I said, "Hi, my name's Joe Glover," and they let me in. The next 30 seconds were spent surveying the scene, looking around, and this particular event was in a nightclub, and like people were stood in those circles, and it was dark and it was loud and it was scary. So then the next 3 minutes were spent hiding in the toilets, not wanting to be there. The next 30 seconds were spent bolting from the venue to catch the train back to London. 2.5 hours on the train, all of a sudden, for 4.5 minutes at a networking event. Scary. All of this meant that, in effect, networking just didn't feel like for me. It wasn't the place I wanted to be. It was clear that something kinder needed to exist. And hence, ironically, on the train, the Marketing Meetup was born. Something new entered the world. And I've included a kitten picture here as well for folks who are a little bit more cat people than dog people. Hopefully you appreciate. The Marketing Meetup looked a little bit like this. It was a collection of some very, very lovely people in a Redgate software server in a canteen, coming together to learn, to connect, and do it with kindness. Now let's fast forward to February 2020. Things were going great. I'd just gone full time on the Marketing Meetup. Everyone was being kind to one another. They were looking after each other. We had 140 events going across in 13 locations in the world, including New York, where that picture is from. And very importantly, we were doing everything on meetup.com. That was where we were hosting our events. But everyone knows what happens in March 2020. Our friend coronavirus steps in. And all of a sudden, instead of meeting up, then everyone was staying in. And 140 in-person events, well, they went off in a puff of smoke. Importantly for this story, meetup.com, it became a ghost town. Nobody was there anymore. We almost lost our way of communicating with the community. But fortunately, we had an ace in the hole. And that ace was a MailChimp list. A MailChimp list of 2,367 marketing people. Some of you may well have been on that list at that point. A list, I may well point out, that it was James's idea to start in the first instance. Like, he was the person behind all of this. Importantly for this list, unlike meetup.com, this email list was impervious to algorithmic changes. It was impervious to changes in how people related to platforms such as Meetup. People were able to still use email even if COVID was on. The email wasn't anything special sent to these 2,367 people. In fact, this is the first one we sent. It was actually a GIF. We were just saying, thanks so much for being here, everything, and telling the little story of the marketing meetup. Like, we didn't know what we were doing, but we figured we'd just try it out. At the beginning of COVID, this is probably the email I'm most proud of sending ever. It was to those 2,367 people. And it said this: hey there, are you okay? This might be our mailing list, but we care. Your reply will be picked up. On that day, we got 200 responses from the Marketing Meetup community coming back to us with different responses on how they were feeling. Every one of those 200 responses got a reply in turn, hopefully saying, you know, look, we're there for you. And it's okay to feel crap, because at the beginning of COVID, things did feel crap. But also importantly, it gave us the opportunity to do things like this, which is at the beginning of COVID, sort of say, actually, you know what? We can't meet up anymore, but here's the plan. Here's the things that we are going to be doing. And hence this webinar schedule that we've been running for the past 2.5 years. There's been over 100 events now, and it's really been the making of this sort of community in an online sense. And it's really sort of springboarded us back into the real world. All that's happened over these past 2.5 years is that 2,367 people, well, it's turned into a community of some 35,000 people across the world. Not only that, they're positively lovely and engaged. It's wicked. And honestly, I can't say thank you enough for being part of all of this. Needless to say, I love email, but this story isn't about me, it's about you. And 53 slides in, I could get a drum roll from the chat feature right now. We'll see how you manage that one. Then drum roll, please. Let's do. Those are some excellent interpretations of drum rolls. Thank you, everyone. Then let's do the title slide, which is what I've learned about building a newsletter. You guys are the best. Thank you. And actually, just to go back to that, what I've learned about building a newsletter. Isn't that a bloody inspirational title? What a brainwave that was. Now, I could spend this time speaking about software, tactics, and more, but actually that's for the Q&A. And so I really would encourage you to use the Q&A feature for the duration of today's session, because I want to get into that. So I'm going to go quick on the rest of this. But I think the most useful thing I can do is give a grounding on what's important, the 3 things that I think you need to have in mind before you even go into your MailChimps, your ConvertKits, your HubSpots, whatever it may be, to actually create emails that matter. And those 3 things are this: where email fits. Secondly, it's not about you. And thirdly, how to make an email yours. If that sounds good, then let's go. Number 1, where email fits. Now, I have a confession to make. For the first, 5-6 years of my marketing career, bearing in mind I'm only 10 years in now, I was a very, very average marketer. I'm still not great. I'm still, I might be like 5.5 out of 10, who knows? But the thing was, I know what it feels like to be stuck in the mud. I know what it feels like to launch something and get no response. And that means to say that when we're speaking about email here, then really actually the thing that I love is email in context. I don't just love email by itself, because fundamentally, as a tool, a newsletter is just that. It's a tool. It's a tool that can be used for good, or it's a tool that can be used, just like my DIY skills, for basically nothing. It can be completely rubbish. So really what we're speaking about here with the table stakes for great emails are context and purpose. And I've got two thoughts on that. So let's go through. First, on context. Now, a lot of you will be familiar with this guy, Mark Ritson. He has this model, which changed my marketing career. I've got no problem admitting that. And that is diagnosis, strategy, and tactics. For those of you unfamiliar, at the diagnosis stage, you're looking to understand the market. At the strategy stage, you're looking to say, who are we going to target? What are we going to target them with? What's the message that we want to get out to those people? And how are we going to reach them? At the tactic stage, that's where stuff like the price, the place, the promotion, the product come in. And those are things that are vigorously defended by marketing academics around the world, as well as practitioners, are saying, those are just the 4 Ps you need. It's okay to focus on those tactics. And email, it very, very, very much fits into that last thing, the tactics. Now, this is a very, very important point. But what it means to say is that until you've understood the market you're going to be serving and know the message that you want to go out to them with, don't even go into your email system. There's no point. There's no point at all. Have your diagnosis and your strategy sorted first before starting with your tactics. This is an important point. I don't have enough time to go into it. So watch this talk, On the Contrary by Mark Ritson. I recommend it all the time. It changed my marketing world. I think it might do for yours too, if you're unfamiliar with diagnosis, strategy, and tactics. So that's context. But how about purpose? Well, let's keep this statement in mind. What you're trying to achieve and for whom makes the world of difference. It's not just let's do some emails. What we're focusing in here is especially on that first bit, what you're trying to achieve. How do you use email? Well, for me, I'd recommend this. I'd be thinking about these 6 things. I'd be thinking about the funnel, the age-old funnel that we speak about in marketing: awareness, consideration, preference, purchase, retention, and advocacy. And these are the different ways in which you can use email to just give some purpose to your activity. Here we can see that I've removed preference from some reasons. So let's just speak about 5 stages and the way that the Marketing Meetup uses our emails in different ways in order to speak to the community. At the awareness stage, we don't do an awful lot, because the point of that is that, like, at the awareness stage, you're making people aware that you exist. Well, we don't do a lot of cold email. So we don't really do anything at the awareness stage. That's not how we choose to use email as a tool. In the Marketing Meetup. But at the consideration stage, we may send an email. In fact, we do. I sent one this morning that said, hey, we're going to run a webinar today. Would you like to come along? And that's a consideration thing. You know, you're aware the Marketing Meetup's here, and actually, you know what, you may well come through. We don't really sell anything to you at the Marketing Meetup, but at the purchase stage, the closest thing that we've got is our confirmation emails. I think Zoom actually does a really bad job of those, and I'd love to do a much better thing with the Marketing Meetup emails at the confirmation stage. But actually, that's the kind of purchase kind of email. And then at the retention advocacy stage, the Marketing Meetup is specifically a kind of organization that, as I say, doesn't really do a great job at selling anything to you apart from webinars. So we just say, come to more webinars, and here's some extra stuff that we think you'll like. And then at the advocacy stage, we sort of say, you know what, could you help us? Could you let us know what you would like us to help you with a little bit more? Or could you fill in this survey, because it'll help us help you more? Or indeed, at the beginning of every event, we ask you to share something on social media. And again, that's a testimonial request. That's a request for advocacy. Now, one of my great heroes, and another person that James introduced me to, and someone that we visited at the end of last year, you should see the videos of those. They're great on our YouTube channel. David Hyatt is this man. And David Hyatt says, if you're going to sell, sell. If you're going to entertain, entertain. Basically, do one thing well. And I think the same theory applies for email. So here we can see an email, which I would consider more of a consideration-based email. You've come into the Marketing Meetup newsletter, and you've got the option to say, hey, look, you're invited to this email. You're invited to this event. This is a consideration-based email. This email has purpose. This email is after the event. it's the same webinar that we've ran, but it's got a very different purpose. It's more about retention. It's more about advocacy. So what you can see at the top is that we've got stuff about keeping in touch with the community. So joining our Facebook group, getting the recording in case you missed it, joining the Marketing Meetup podcast. And actually we snuck in a little bit of advocacy at number 5 there, but actually this is far more about retention. This is a retention-based email. And then this is something else. This is, again, probably more of a retention-based email than anything else. But when we send out our bite-sized roundups, again, it's a little bit about retention. It's about focus. It's about bringing people through and sort of saying, you know what, you're engaged now. And if you want to be part of it, then, you know, here you are. Here's the opportunity to continue to be engaged. And gladly with the Marketing Meetup, then it's just a free thing that you can come along to and have a nice time and meet some very lovely people. It's a very nice bit of retention. I hope you feel the same. Basically, there's a world of opportunity with our emails. And right now, I think the most important thing is that before we head into our various softwares, that we take the time to understand context and purpose, which then gives us the opportunity to enter our marketing and our email softwares and not be stuck in the mud, but do it with a purpose and a reason. Number 2, it's not about you. How to get people to sign up to your email. So this very lovely lady is called Penny Ferguson. In fact, she came to one of our webinars a long time ago at the beginning of last year. Now, this is a really, really lovely picture of Penny. She is the 77-year-old CEO of a company called The Living Leader, which changed my life for the better. Now, this is a lovely photo of Penny until you realize the very creepy clown in the background, and then it becomes a little bit sinister. But actually, just focus on Penny. And Penny changed my life with 4 words. It's not about you. Now, when a lot of us go onto our websites, if we have a newsletter presently, then a lot of our sign-up forms are going to look a little bit like this. Sign up to receive the latest updates and news. That's already the most generic sort of bit of copy that you'll ever do. And by the way, I have done this too. I have written down the latest news straight into your inbox more times than I care to admit before I cross it out and do something else, because it's the most generic way to sort of say, you know what, come and have our information. In fact, the biggest signal I think that a sign-up form like this gives is we want your data and we're going to sell it you. It's just not good. It's not good enough. It doesn't convey any sense of purpose, any reason for people to want to join up to your newsletter. If we're speaking about sign-up forms, which we are, then there has to be something a little bit better. Fundamentally, the question that I think we need to be asking is, what's in it for the people you're helping? And I love that way of thinking about marketing too. What's in it for the people you're helping? It's a very human experience, and it's not human to human marketing. It's just saying, we're a bunch of people making it up. And actually, if we can communicate between the two of us, then we've got the opportunity to help you. That's really, really cool. 2 more thoughts on this. So first, sign-up forms. Here's some really, really great examples of sign-up forms, which I think do so much better than the latest news straight to your inbox. The first is marketing examples run by a guy called Harry Dry. Here you can see that there's a very clear, this is the sign-up form, by the way, which has seen Harry get 100,000 subscribers to his newsletter in like 2.5, 3 years, which is phenomenal. It sits at the top of his page, and at the top of the page in the top left, it's got a logo. It's got a logo that says marketing examples. You know why you're there immediately. You have context. Next, get 6 new tips in your inbox every other Monday. There's a very specific reward. You're getting 6 tips, 6 new tips, and then every other Monday. So you're getting reassurance that you're not going to be getting emails every day. It's going to be something that sort of happens like every 2 weeks, which seems all right. And then again, I didn't highlight it here, but he puts yes, please, which I think is a lovely little call to action as well, which is really human. Next, we've got Eddie Schleiner on very good copy. Again, what we can see here on his page is a very, 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 I've just seen the comment from Neil here. He says, Harry is brilliant, but not loving the capital on please. James pulls me up on our emails all the time for lowercase things as well. So like, there's definitely something to be said for that. Nonetheless, this is Eddie's page. Eddie says very, very clearly at the top, if you're going to join my newsletter, you're going to get one very specific thing. You're going to learn how to persuade. And then it says, well, it's about copywriting and creativity. There's a very, very clear, specific reward that people are going to get by joining that newsletter. What I also love here is that Eddie takes the time to include some social proof to say, actually, you know what, this is not just going to be about, you're not going to be here by yourself on this journey. There's 40,000 other people on this journey with you. And then a very clear button. Again, super good. I like this one. And then finally, Dave Harlan. Again, we've got some social proof at the top. We've got 12,559 other people are on this newsletter. Again, Dave gives a very specific reward. Sign up for mind-blowingly simple marketing tips, devilishly persuasive copywriting techniques, and downright ridiculous stories. Note how that's, Dave's a copywriter, so he should be good at this, right? But that's one sentence that is just beautifully compelling. And again, he gives clear assurance on the regularity of how often you're going to receive it. Every one of these sign-up forms has a clear purpose and saying, you know what, you're going to get this thing if you join this newsletter. I think that's wicked. I think more of us should do things like that. Secondly, on it's not about you, let's think about language. I think this phrase in marketing should die. I don't think many things, I don't wish death on many things, but I wish death on this phrase, we're so excited. So I want to give an example of how I tend to think about it in our copy, at the very least. So this is a snippet from the very bottom of our emails that says, I really hope these sessions will be useful for you. We get started next Tuesday. Hope to see you there. With so much love, Joe, James, L, and Team TMM. PS, if I can ask a favor, experience with friends, a little bit of advocacy at the bottom there. But actually what we see there is that if you see the instances for you, I really hope these sessions will be useful for you. We get started next Tuesday. Hope to see you there. With so much love, Joe, James, and L. It's about you. It's about the people that come up and sort of say, it's for the people who are reading. It's not about us. It's not saying, like, we're excited. It's about, I hope it's exciting for you. I think that's really important. And so I think great email communications always keep that in mind. So rather than saying we're so excited, let's think about why they should be excited. And here, again, we can apply our friend, the awareness, consideration, purchase, retention, and advocacy. At the awareness stage, you can say, here's an exciting opportunity for you, making people aware of something that exists. At the consideration stage, there's things like, here's a thing you'll like, well, such as a webinar. At the purchase stage is, here's the details of your purchase. At the retention, you're amazing. Here's something else you might like. And at the advocacy, can you help me make this experience even better for yourself by bringing in others? It's all about them. It's not about us. Finally, number 3, and then the talk is over and then we can get into the Q&A. So if you have any questions, do get them into the Q&A right now. I can see that there's 8 open questions right now, and we'll go from there. There's nothing more intimidating than a blank sheet of paper. Nothing more intimidating at all. And so I wanted to very quickly at the end of this, give a demonstration of 12 opportunities for you to make your emails your own in a 25-word email. Now, I think this is important because actually what I've sort of taken the time, hopefully in this talk, to do is to say that actually, there is no golden sort of way to write an email. The only way that you're going to be able to do it is to make it your own. To make it your own in the pursuit of helping the people that you want to help the most. And actually what we can see here on this email is 25 emails long, are these 12 opportunities to make emails your own. So here we've got the subject line. Now, James, as I say, gives me stick all the time for making them lowercase, but it sure as hell sticks out in the inbox, and it's consistent. I think that's more important. It's not just about sticking out for the sake of sticking out. It's at least consistent with the marketing meetup. It's consistent with the stuff that we put out, and therefore the expectation is that that's going to be the case. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's consistent. More than that, the subject line here also is ridiculously long. It's stupidly long. It's more long than it definitely needs to be, but it's slightly contrived, and like my writing style is quite wordy, and so therefore at least you know that it's consistent and feels like ours. Next, they've got the profile photo in line with the branding. So you've got the Marketing Meetup gradient in the background. It's actually changed since then because now it's the Marketing Meetup smile, but you can see that it's a person emailing you. And very much importantly, as part of all of that, this email is coming from my personal email address. It's not coming from a no reply at tmm.com. I think that's a really important point, because I think that there's an opportunity missed by a lot of marketing folks by having a no reply email address. It doesn't make sense to me, because if a customer wants to get in touch with you, then I really think it's really important that we allow them to do it on terms that allows them to get in touch with you. So I don't mean to be wishing death upon two things in a single talk, but here we go. I think no reply email should die. I think we need something which is far more personal. I think ideally behind a person. I think as we're moving more and more towards people being happy to engage with personal brands as well as brands as a larger concept, then I think this will only become more powerful. Next, we've got the unique salutation, and James referenced this at the beginning, and hopefully some of you like it. But I think really the exercise that this proves more than anything is that you can just say hi Joe, or you can say hi Joe, and then hopefully make someone's day with it. The point is not necessarily that you need to copy me, but the point is actually that it's an opportunity that you can look at, and you can say, can our salutation be a little bit different? Can it be something that represents us a little bit better? I think fundamentally these are about looking for opportunities, again, to be more like you. Here we get the copy, again, super short, and we use emojis. Again, it might not be right for you, but it was right for us at that moment in time. And again, the copy in the CTA, the call to action, is informal and not a sign up here. Really, the most important thing, and these 12 things that I'm pointing out, is that the Marketing Meetup emails look and feel like Marketing Meetup emails. I think there's opportunities everywhere, and if we take the time to actually inspect them, then we can start to create emails that not only look and feel like us, but actually really resonate with our customers, our community, whoever we want to reach. So really, this last point is one of just encouragement. It's just to take the time to sit down and question everything, because an email doesn't have to be boring. Whether it's B2B, B2C, whatever it is, it's an opportunity to get in touch with another human being, and therefore seek out these opportunities to be more like you in the pursuit of helping the people you want to help. So there we have it. 3 underlying principles of email that I hope would set us up for a really, really good foundation point on sending great emails. So we spoke about context and purpose at the beginning, about placing email very much in the place of a tactic rather than diagnosis and strategy. It needs to be at the end. It needs to be after you've already set out your strategy. Secondly, we spoke about it not being about you, and we spoke about sign-up forms, and we spoke about the language that you use in your emails. It's not about you, so make it about the customer. And then finally, how to make an email yours. And really the broader point there was very much like, there's just a bunch of opportunities. So let's seek them out. Like, I think this is just a really good platform that can be used in so many different ways. And we've just got the time to really inspect it and create something special. Because at the end of the day, just like the Borat meat gif or the tape, it's just a tool. Email is just a tool. How you use it is really what makes the difference. So with all that said, thank you very much for listening for this last bit of period. My name is Joe Glover. This is the Marketing Meetup. You can catch our newsletter. Find me on LinkedIn. And this line doesn't work anymore because usually at the end of an event, I say, you can find me in the toilet. But it doesn't work here. So let's go into the Q&A instead.
That's the dodgiest way to finish any presentation, Joe. In the toilet. Like, come on, we're trying to encourage people to come to our events. They're not like
you can find me hiding in the toilet.
Oh, hiding in the toilet. Right. Okay. Different. Very different. Goodness me. Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks for that, mate. Do you know, it's really interesting sort of where we sort of started out and sort of fumbling to get an online business going. And I think probably a lot of people like me just see these things land in their inbox and it seems nice and casual, but actually there's a lot of thinking that goes behind that, and down to the very carefully sort of chosen words and all that kind of thing. So it's I think that's brilliant, and I think it's been super valuable for not only me but for the community as a whole. Before we go into the questions, I've got a question, because I'm host, I can ask it first. I'm interested to know, well, two things. One, is there an email that you receive, and I know you're famously not brilliant on sort of managing email, but is there one that you always look out for, that you're like, hey, I'm going to read this because it's really good?
Well, it's at this point I definitely plug Being Human by our very favorite James Sambrook. It's almost like we planned it. But no, I love your email because it speaks to being human. I think that's bang on, in the sense that I think you and I share a sense that business is just a bunch of people doing their best, and I think you embody that. So I think that's wicked.
Oh, thanks, mate. I wasn't actually expecting you to say that.
No. But like, beyond that, so I really love Louis Grenier's email, and I think that the reason why I love it is that, so he hasn't been doing as much of this recently because of the birth of his daughter, but he takes long form, considered email and actually spends the time to write something really, really thoughtful and meaningful. He writes basically blog posts every time that he sends an email. So you open it up and you're like, yep, I know that that's going to be wicked. I think there's also an underlying principle there, which is that, and my old boss used to speak about this, and they used to say that they used to want to open an email newsletter and it feel a little bit like his favorite magazine, in that he could open up the pages and he kind of knew what to expect. So he knew that there would be like his favorite sketch in Private Eye on page 20. And so he would always go to page 20. And so I think there's a lot to be said for like consistency, really. I think that speaks also to a wider point, which is one that not everyone reads every email. So the Marketing Meetup has an open rate of about 40% of our newsletter, which I'm really pleased with. But that still means that 60% of people, don't open every time, and that's absolutely fine. But I think if we got that consistency built in, matched with quality, then I think that's a real recipe for success. And so when I speak about Louis and those long form blog content emails, I think that's wicked. So that will be why.
I have to agree, actually. I mean, I get Louis' email as well, and I think it's great. The one thing that I think would be better is that it landed in my inbox, and this is a timing question, which I think we've got in the Q&A. I always used to think, if I'm going to write a longer form email that there's a lot of content in there to consume, is to maybe send it like on a Sunday afternoon when people are just sort of sat chilling out, rather than, if you're sending a long form email on a Monday at 10, it just gets deleted because you think, oh, and quite often I mark Louis as unread because I'm like, I know there's gold in there and I want to come back to it. One of my favorites is David Hyatt's. Actually, you mentioned David,
yes.
his business, Hyatt Denim. They write an email called the Scrapbook Chronicles, and it's got a mix of creativity and tech and culture and all sorts of things, and they're kind of like bite-sized things, which work well for somebody with a short attention span like mine. But yeah. Should we jump into the Q&A?
Absolutely.
We've got Holly from Impression, one of our sponsors, has managed to get herself right to the top, and she says, subject line and send time, best practices, to the point. What are they, Joe? Holly wants to know. Come on, she's a sponsor.
I tend to move away from sort of catch-all things and sort of say, this is the best time, because there'll be people watching in today who are in life sciences, there'll be people watching in who are in agencies, there'll be people watching in who are in, sort of one-person bands and with a range of customers. And so I think it would be wrong for me to say there is a best time to send email. That being said, I think the way that I tend to think about it is by making inferences on human behavior. And so the way that I think about it with the marketing meetup emails that we send, generally speaking, around 8:30 to sort of 9 o'clock in the morning, is that most people will be sort of sitting down at their desk around that kind of time, maybe a little bit later, but it'll at least be in their inbox for that point in time. And they're probably going to be looking at their calendar as well. And they're probably going to be looking ahead to the day and sort of saying, oh, yeah, I know where the gaps are here, and so on and so forth. And so if you see a really, really compelling webinar, Tuesday, 2 o'clock, and you know that you got a gap and something lands in your inbox which sort of says, here you go, then that feels like quite a sensible, sort of time to sort of send our email. And so that's the reason why we send ours quite early on. It may well be, because I know that because Polly's in an agency, that it may well be that Polly knows that people tend to sit down at their desk at lunchtime and eat their lunch at their lunch at their desks, which isn't a great practice for health reasons. But it may well be that that, and therefore you can sort of say, yeah, you know what, we're going to do a lunchtime email. And so I would say there's no such thing as a best time catch-all, but there's probably some inferences that you can make from human behavior which give you a better chance. I think the last thing to say on that is probably that, just like you, there is different ways which we interact with emails. So you look at people like Louis, where you've actually gone in and said, I mark it as unread because I know that I want to go back into it. You may well go back to it because it's good. And I think that's also an important thing to note, which is if the content is good, then people will seek it out to a certain extent. Not always, but they will seek it out sometimes. And if that's the case, then always prioritize the content first and foremost.
Yeah, and I think just to touch on subject line, because I think that's a really
really
important one. Just you can put, and I've done it myself with my own email. I've put my heart and soul into writing something that I'm really proud of, and then spent about 5 minutes coming up with the subject line, which has been a bit mediocre. And then all of a sudden my open rate's really bad. I'm like, but the email's really good. I want you to read this one. And so almost the subject line becomes arguably one of the most important things.
Definitely. Great point. And so I would, again, you can't give catch-all advice, but what you can say is that I think honesty is always the best policy. And so I say that because, for example, it was a recent example actually. So I had COVID about 3-4 months ago, and I just pushed through. Again, not a very good example, sort of I'm setting here, but I knew I wanted to get the newsletter out, so I sort of pushed through. And I put a slightly clickbaity sort of subject line in. I think it was would you like 21% more customers? It was speaking about accessibility and how 21% of the world's population have accessibility troubles or challenges. And therefore, if we gear our activity to those 21% people, then we've got the opportunity to reach more folks. And I put that rubbish subject line in, which said, would you like 21% more people? And the point here is that actually I got, a number of emails back from folks sort of saying, you can do better. You can do better than making me click into a thing. And I was sat there sort of thinking, I've really pushed through on COVID for this, and it was upsetting, but it was true. And I think the point is here that it's not about just getting people to open your newsletter. Once they're in, they have to like the content, it has to deliver. And so I'd really encourage folks to, for me, our current subject lines are very much just here's what's in it. It's like marketing jobs and a webinar on newsletters. But that's something which hasn't harmed us. And I think if people want what's in it, then you can just tell them what's in it rather than sort of having to play tricks, because I don't think that serves anyone.
One of the so when Joe and I went to Hyatt Denim, we sat with I can't remember the lady's name now, but the lady that manages the emails for Hyatt Denim, and we talked about subject lines, and theirs is Scrapbook Chronicles #number whatever it is, 300 and such, and it's the same every single time. And we kind of asked the question, we're like, well, do you not want to vary it? But actually that familiarity is something that people look for, and therefore it becomes quite consistent in terms of open rates and that kind of thing. So yeah, there isn't one thing of doing it, but I think you're bang on in saying, don't promise something, get somebody really excited, and then it's a bit like a clickbaity YouTube thumbnail. It's it actually harms you if you go, oh, that looks like an interesting video, you click on it, and actually the video has nothing to do with that, you're going to come out of it straight away, and that sort of, that's a lot of trust gone. So yeah, that's great. Thanks, Joe. Alex asks, open rates or click rates, which is a better KPI for newsletters, or is it something else?
Well, let's go down to the awareness, consideration, purchase, retention, advocacy. So you may well be that the purpose of your email is that you just want to make people aware of something. So today, the Marketing Meetup newsletter went out. We had 3 calls to action. We had the first one was about the webinar, the second was marketing jobs, and then the third was a list of the technology that we use at the Marketing Meetup. And in the third of those sections, the technology, there wasn't any clickable links. That was just a bit of information about the things that we do. And so really the purpose of that bit of the section, it had nothing to do with clicks. It was just about people opening. And so in that case, you could say that the open rate is the determining factor. That's the most useful thing. It may well be if you're going to be doing like a more consideration or a purchase-based email, then actually the click is going to be really, really important. And so I'd rather say, rather than sort of say for newsletters in general, I would say, what's the purpose of your newsletter? Is it awareness, consideration, purchase, retention, and advocacy? And that will probably feed you the KPI, which is going to be the most important. That's the way I think about it. And that's why purpose behind your emails is so, so important.
Yeah. And I think if you, I can see somebody in the chat asking about, can emails be there for sort of selling? They can, but I think you've got to offer more value than you offer, than you sort of try and sell. It's the kind of, I don't usually reference him, but like the Gary Vaynerchuk, he wrote a book years ago called Jab, 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 Right Hook, and it's about value, 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 value. And then like there might become a point where, we send an email out for the Marketing Meetup saying, hey, we'd like you to buy a Marketing Meetup jumper. I don't know, we haven't Marketing Meetup jumpers, but at that point it might be 3 years in of value-led emails, and there's a lot more kind of much higher chance of people buying jumpers. We're not going to do jumpers. Okay. Any tips for a better open rates for B2B businesses? That's an interesting one. Any thoughts on that, Jamie?
Yeah. Well, I think we do actually sell jumpers. We've got our little store. Yeah, we make like no money on it at all. Like
it's because even the co-founders doesn't know about it.
But if people want jumpers, like very, very happy to send a link to our page.
That'll come out in the follow-up email. The big banner. Really good. The subject line is going to be buy our jumpers.
They're really good jumpers. They're organic cotton. They've been like ethically produced. They're like, I love it. So yeah, we'll send the links to the jumpers if people want. And we sell t-shirts too.
T-shirts, oh yeah.
Anyway, B2B businesses. Any tips for better open rates for B2B businesses? So this is a marketing cliche, right? That it's human to human. Like I hate it when people say human to human in marketing because it feels so blindingly obvious, but it's important. Yes, there's hoodies too, Lindsay. But with B2B, I think the most important thing is that so often, and I'd appreciate if the anonymous attendee would ask a follow-up question here, maybe about why B2B feels different. Because I think the argument that a lot of people will put forward is that it's boring. But I really don't think B2B is boring. I think B2B is really blooming exciting. You got the opportunity largely to sell to a far smaller customer base, a number of folks who you can really nail in and understand on a quite, on a level which you could never really appreciate if you're going to be like sending like emails to thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So B2B feels different because the assumption is you need to be more formal, is what Laura has put in there. So let's take that. I don't think that's true. I just don't think it's true anymore. I think what we can see is a choice. And I'm going to speak about Monzo now. So Monzo are a bank. They're financial services. I mean, in theory, that's a really quote unquote boring sector to be in. But what we saw with Monzo is that they came in, they made a choice. They made a choice to be a challenger brand with a specific tone of voice. This means that it sort of comes across and gets in touch with like a very specific type of person. They made a choice on their positioning, and therefore their positioning matches their messaging. And so all of a sudden, you know, Monzo have made this choice. They've now got a positioning, they've got a messaging that matches. And it's nothing about formality or indeed being sensible. It's about having a voice that is true to them. And so I think like fundamentally, it's about finding your own voice and sort of running through. I can see you moving though, James. So I want to give you the chance.
Well, I mean, obviously that's a bit more B2C as
True.
an example, but
yeah.
I'm thinking about my own email and ones that I work with other clients, where if you're talking about your products or service, and that's the thing that you're just ramming down people's throat via email, then B2B emails become really dull really quickly. I very rarely talk about actually making, you know, well, here's the video I made, or, you know, it's more about the thoughts that are in my head, and I'm trying to get people to know me as the person sending the email, because I'm ultimately the one that people are buying from. And so I think the opportunity with, you know, as a company that I work with that do part exchange for house builders, well, if you just talk about part exchange, then you're going to get bored pretty quickly. Whereas Steve, the guy that runs it, you know, he's a really lovely guy, and ultimately Steve wants people to buy from him. So he talks about things outside of what he does and his view on the, you know, on the world, and actually that keeps his audience really warm. And so that feels like the B2B opportunity is actually to really layer in some personality and bring forward all the people that are helping you run the business. I think there's massive power in that.
That's it. The last thing I agree fully. And the last thing I would say on that is that it's okay to be boring too, and it's okay to be formal. You don't have to be like the emoji written, you know, whatever, you know, match what your customers want and expect. And if that is quote unquote boring, which I still disagree with, then that's okay, because that's what the customer's there for. If my pension fund started going crazy on me, you know, like I don't know how I'd respond. So, you know, match your customers. I think that's really important. So
I should imagine this would be a quick answer, but Alex asks, which ESP do you think is best?
Cool. We've used MailChimp, we've used ConvertKit, we're moving to HubSpot now. I think MailChimp is really, really great and will do for 90% of businesses. It sort of gets quite expensive as you get more subscribers. ConvertKit is great if you want to be doing more plain text emails. It's very sort of creator-led as a platform, so they do a lot of incentivization for things like that. HubSpot, we've now moved into, just based on the amount of organizers that we have for our local events, and therefore stuff like team permissions becomes really important, stuff like automation becomes really important. And therefore, you know, I don't think there's a best, there's just a what's right for you. And there's a bunch out there. Klaviyo is another example that's really focused in on e-commerce. So it goes into what features do you need? And that's how we ended up choosing HubSpot most recently, was that the features we needed only existed on HubSpot. And so we went with them. And so if I was to go through the process, I'd just write down what you need and then have a bunch of demos and sort of see what satisfies it the best. That would be how I'd approach it.
I've got a really small mailing list, probably about 300, and I use MailChimp, and it's fine. It's nice and easy, and I've got other customers that are on there, and it's, you know, nice and user friendly. So if you're just starting out, then that's probably a good place to start. Simon, who I think is one of our Birmingham attendees, how far ahead are you planning your emails? I think we should really. Do you want to answer that, Jen?
Well, to give it, I'm really outing myself as a very bad person in terms of my working habits. So the email you would have received this morning was written at the same time as, and written and sent at the same time. I started it last night about 9 o'clock, actually, after I got back from Jersey, sort of sat down and sort of did the bulk of it. And this is actually where the sort of not the templated approach, but the consistent approach is really useful. So I knew that broadly speaking, this email would have a header, which was about the webinar. The middle would be about the jobs. And then I just needed to figure out a bit of value-led content for folks that wouldn't want to engage with either of those two things. And so today I settled on the 23 bits of MarTech that we use. But like, we write it at the same time. And like, I'm sure if you go back and look at Marketing Meetup emails, which I try not to now because it'll embarrass me, there's probably a lot of typos and stuff like that. But, you know, like, I think, you know, it's important to be honest.
I think one of the things you can do, Simon, as well, is if you're doing like a newsletter, if you're sort of forced, if you let's say you're sending it out every Monday, and you sit down to write it, it becomes really hard to just come up with the ideas on the spot. I think as a creative, sometimes we're just expected to come up with ideas. So I use Notion as a note-taking app and I've got a folder for ideas, and that might be ideas for LinkedIn, might be ideas for email. And as they come into my head, if I read something, I'm watching something on the telly, or I'm having my breakfast and an idea comes into my mind, I drop it down in there, and my email is monthly. So by the time I come to write it, I've actually got all the content that I'm going to share. It's just a case of just patting it into shape and sending it out. I think if I was in a place where I had to just start from fresh and do it on the spot, unless I'd got a structure and a purpose, you know, such as like announcing a webinar, I think it'd be really hard to do those on the spot. So I'd certainly use that, have a resource sat there that you add to over time, to make your writing of your emails easier. Lee, do you think a B2B focused business can still build a community of engaged newsletter subscribers?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, it may just be smaller. It may be smaller, but actually you may use it in a different way. So context and purpose. You may decide that your newsletter list is going to be 50 people, but it's going to be 50 heads of e-commerce in medium to large retail brands.
Yeah.
And you provide the world's greatest email to those 50 people. And that's fine. It doesn't need to be tens of thousands, a community. So Lee used the word community there. A community is not defined by the size of how large it is. It is defined by the people in it and how they are engaged and how they feel when they're part of it. And so whether it's 50 or 50,000 or 50 million, the most important thing is like you're there for them, and the email can certainly play a part in that picture.
Yeah, definitely. And as I've already said, mine's really small, and it has probably been the best lead generator for Human above anything else that I've done in the last 4 years. And it, you know, only up until recently, it probably only got 200 people on it. And it only takes one person to go, oh yeah, actually, need to get in touch. And so it's, yeah, it doesn't need to be big, it just needs to be good. So yeah, I think we're at pretty much at time. Did you want to, what we can do is we can save some of these questions and maybe, I don't know, form a blog post off the back of it, or, you know,
absolutely,
sort of answer some of the questions. It'd be really, really, really great if you could share your sort of big takeaway on social today. And as I say, we'll send out the links to you, to the people that sponsor us, and allow this to happen, and for Joe and I to just have fun on a webinar, giggling with each other. And, you know, we really, really appreciate you all coming, and massively appreciate our sponsors as well. And so, yeah, make sure you're signing in next week, because we'll have another one coming. And yeah, we'll probably look at that. Bang on, 3 o'clock. It's time to go and get the kids. So, yeah, we'll speak to you all soon. And thanks for coming.
Thank you, everyone.